thanks for the Mission of Paraguay. Muchas gracias, Su Excelencia, for hosting this event, and also to my co-host organization as CFAM and CitizenGO, with whom we are greatly grateful. So today we've been listening about the modern slavery, thank you. But what we need to think is that in the region, Central America is the source of the product that we are trafficking, or that they are trafficking. So that is why I'm going to focus my conference today in Central America and, of course, my country, Guatemala. What we do in AFI, Asociación La Familia Importa, or Family Matters Association, is that we are a nonprofit civil society organization. We are based in Guatemala. We have 3 pillars of work, which are life, family, and freedom. We engage in advocacy at national level and international level, in Congress and in OAS and UN, as we are here. We have permanent status as civil society. We lead, thank you, we lead a network of more than 50 organizations in our country. And what we do towards this subject matter is that we carry out important prevention work directly with families and women, especially those who are more vulnerable. So why Central America? Why is Central America the corridor for this modern slavery crime? There are 3 specific factors. First, due to its geographical position, Central America is used as a corridor for human trafficking, but also migrant smuggling. It is one of the most economically profitable activity, both nationally and internationally, for criminal structures and traffickers. And third, last but not least, these crimes violate the human rights, the dignity, the integrity, the privacy, and even the lives of the people subjected to them. I have here one of the best survivors and advocacy at my left, and she can be a testimony of this. They affect not only the victim, but the democratic stability, the human development, and citizen security. So there are a couple of risk factors that makes Central America one of the most profitable corridor for human trafficking. The first is that trafficking is facilitated by a combination of poverty, inequality, and weak institutions that are responsible for protecting citizens. We do have in Central America, not in South America, a judicial body and a child protection system that is corrupted and also is weak. It is inefficient. So it is very difficult to prosecute traffickers and protect victims. Third, we have adverse socioeconomic conditions such as poverty and lack of access to education. So this increases people's vulnerability to being trafficked. As Christina said, for example, she was sentimentally manipulated, but in our countries, they are economically and social manipulated. They say, you want to give your children food, so come here and you need to work for me. You want to have a better life? You want to have a house? You want to have food? Because when we talk about extreme poverty in our countries, are families that live with $1 per day. So we are talking about extreme poverty conditions that makes our population more vulnerable. And the hope of achieving and having a better life condition often becomes a trigger to become a victim of traffickers. Of course, we also have the sentiment manipulation. So the purpose of human trafficking in Central America has the following forms. They traffic human beings for any form of slavery, for pornography, that my colleague Natalia will further talk about this subject, prostitution of others, sexual exploitation, extraction and trafficking of human organs and tissue, because once they finish trafficking them, especially children, once they stop prostituting children and they are 18 years old or 20 years old, they're not of use for them anymore. So they extract organs and they sell the organs. Recruitment of minors for organized criminal groups, as we call them, gangs. We have a lot of gangs in Central America, unfortunately. Forced labor or service, illegal adoption, forced marriage, sale, if you may call it like that, of individuals, servitude, and forced begging. If you go to a Central American country, you could see people begging for money in the stop signs. Most of these are victims of human trafficking, and they are not begging for money for themselves. Sorry, this is not my control. Thank you. So, according to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, says the following: if trafficked persons are not identified, they become invisible. So the prompt and accurate identification of victims is essential to ensure the protection of the rights to which they are entitled. And this is something that we have trouble in Central America. We do not have updated statistics of what is happening, so we cannot identify to all the victims and or survivors. What we do have is CORET. CORET is a regional coalition against human trafficking and migrant smuggling, and this is a regional organization made up of 9 countries, as you can see in the screen right now. It's Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Belice, Costa Rica, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and Dominican Republic, República Dominicana. So they're trying to do this effort to identify victims and to make policies that will help prevent human trafficking. Let's see some of the statistics that they have. They have identified victims from 2018 to 2021, but we are in 2025. We are 4 years behind of these statistics. So we have approximately 1,600 victims per year that CORET has identified. If we can go to the second chart, we can see that Mexico and Guatemala are the ones that have the most percentage of victims and survivors. Mexico has a 47.2%, and Guatemala, which is a very small country compared to Mexico, we have 24.76. And then we go to 7.87 to Dominican Republic and so on. So Mexicans and Guatemalans victims are, of course, the fuel, the product that these traffickers use. As we can see, these are statistics from my country, Guatemala. Let's see the democratic characteristics. We have a secretariat against violent sexual exploitation and human trafficking in Guatemala. They have these statistics that are updated until 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So once again, we are lacking 4 years of information. So until that time, these are 2023. We have 88% of women being the victims and or survivors, and 12% men. This is an issue that we need to address for both men and women, but it is a reality based on the data that women are the ones that are subjected in a higher percentage as victims. And according to children's and adolescents versus adults, 94% are children or adolescents. They are minors versus 5.8% that are adults. The last statistics that I have for you is the country of origin of the victims or survivors that we have in Guatemala. 96% are from Guatemala, but we have a 2% of sisters and brothers from Honduras, 0.9% from Colombia, and 0.4% from Mexico. This is a very interesting case because the usual path that traffickers take is that they take Guatemala and Central America as a corridor up to the U.S. But this is an internal human trafficking that brings 0.4 victims from Mexico down to Guatemala. So this is a very specific case. So the forms of human trafficking, we have the two most common ways of human trafficking in Guatemala is sexual exploitation and labor exploitation, and on a third solid place, pornography. So what can we do? How can the UN and the member states can fight human trafficking, the modern slavery? If we may offer you some ideas, these are the following. First, strengthen institutions. We can train officials, we can enforce laws and allocate resources for this very urgent crime and problem that we have. Second is to raise awareness. Cristina, I'm sorry, but I'm her fan. Cristina said, nobody asked me. So we need to raise awareness to educate the public and encourage reporting. Third, engage key sectors. We need to involve tourism. For example, you know that Central America is a very touristic place. Please visit our countries. But we do have sexual tourism. People go to our countries so they can have sexual victims. And as we saw, they're children, and in most women, so girls. So we need to involve the tourism sector, the transport sector, and the private companies. We also need to support victims. We need to provide from the UN and from the member states to provide legal, medical, and psychological aid. We need to tackle pornography's role. I think we've had 4 or 5 decades of not talking about this subject matter, and we need to do it now. We need to regulate content access and reduce demand, since the pornography industry is the customer number one of human trafficking. We need to enhance victim identification, collect regional data, and recognize dignified victims. And we need to boost international cooperation. That is why events like this and Paraguay's mission is very important, because we need to enhance this. And what can we do from civil society, from families? We can educate children. This is very important. We need to teach them about online dangers and personal safety. We need to promote strong families. We are not going to fight this. We're not going to prevent this if we do not have strong families, because we need to build trust and open communication at home. We need to monitor online activity. We need to stop being the parents, and I'm a millennial mom, so I do know we need to stop being the parents that we give our children free online access and we do not ask about it. We need to stop that. We need to be aware of our children's digital interactions. We need to support awareness campaigns, maybe share information, use social media, report suspicious. Strongly exploitative content. We need to avoid pornography and industries linked to trafficking. We need to engage communities, work with schools, churches, local groups. And last but not least, we need to help vulnerable individuals. We need to support at-risk children and vulnerable families. So I invite you, if we could please together here as member states and also civil society, to stand together against modern slavery. Thank you very much.